All right, so now we want to talk about algebraic properties. Normally, we give a little mini unit before we start to review solving properties, but since this is in Unit 2, once we start naming these equations, it should make solving equations a little easier for you once we name these properties. All right, so the addition property of equality says adding the same number to both sides. That's the important thing here is we're adding this to both sides of the equation. Adding this equation or adding this number to both sides does not change the equality. So here if A equals B, then A plus C equals B plus C. See how we added C to both sides? We're still maintaining equality, okay? And I'm actually going to write that here. Adding C to both sides maintains equality. So if we know that x equals y, x plus 2 equals y plus 2. Again, adding 2 maintains the equality. So if x minus 7 equals 14, what should you do to solve for x? Well, you know that they subtracted 7. How do you undo subtracting 7? Well, you're going to add 7 to both sides. So you'll add 7 because that's the inverse of subtracting 7, but you have to remember this part to both sides. All right, subtraction property of equality. Subtracting the same number from both sides does not change the equality. So if A equals B, then A minus C equals B minus C. And yep, let me put that equation into words. Subtracting C from both sides maintains equality. So let's say x equals y. Then x minus 4 equals y minus 4 because we are subtracting the same number from both sides. So if x plus 7 equals 14, what should you do to solve for x? Well, they added 7 to x, so you're going to subtract 7 from both sides. And again, you can't just say subtract 7. You've got to have this key part in. It's an equality. For example, let's say I messed up a test. So I said, okay, first block, I'm going to give you back those 3 points that you lost. First block's going to be happy. I never mentioned it to fourth block. Did I treat you equally? No. And so that's what you have to remember. All right. Multiplication property of equality. Multiplying both sides of the equation by the same number other than 0 does not change the equality. Once you multiply by 0, everything zeroes out. There's no variable, there's nothing there, there's nothing to solve. Here we're saying if A equals B, then AC equals BC. Multiplying both sides by C maintains equality. X equals y. So 3x equals 3y. We multiplied both sides by 3. If x divided by 14 equals 3, what should you do to both sides? Now notice I said x divided by 14. I didn't call it x over 14. Okay, remember a fraction is just a division problem. What should you do to solve for x? You should multiply both sides by 14. How do we undo division? With multiplication. What is the inverse of division? Multiplication. Okay, so likewise, what will be the inverse of multiplication? Division. If A equals B, then AC equals BC. Dividing both sides by C maintains equality. Now we don't see it this way. You'll see it if 3a equals 3b, then a equals b. You know, we divide both sides by 3. If 8x equals 56, what should you do to solve for x? Look at the variable. The variable is x. What did they do to x? They multiplied by 8. So how do you undo multiplying by 8? You divide by 8 on both sides. I should have said divide both sides by 8, but you get the idea. All right. The distributive property of a number and a sum is equal to the sum of the individual products. Okay, this is your order of operations. Order of operations always tells you to do what's inside the parentheses, but there's nothing to do inside the parentheses here because they're not like terms. But your stern math teacher is going to make you get rid of those parentheses. So what's the way around it? Well, everything inside should get multiplied by 2. So 2 times 5x is 10x. Bring my minus. 2 times 9 is 18. So we're distributing. That's a good review of the distributive property. Okay. This is an equivalence property of equality. If A equals B, then B equals A. What in the world, Robodeer? Well, here's how it works. If I give you an equation where you get that 3 equals x, a lot of y'all don't like to write it that way. When you see a multiple choice answer, they're actually going to write it this way. That's all it says. It lets you reverse the equal elements. That's it. You do it all the time. You didn't realize, though, that it had a name. All right, so that's basically it. Let's look at a few to practice. Okay, so identify the property that justifies each missing step in each of the following tables. Okay, so let's look at this first one. 10 minus 2n equals 6. That's given to me. Oh, and by the way, y'all, we're setting you up here for geometry. Ask your friends. They'll tell you. Okay, so 10 minus 2n equals 6. I want to know what happens here in step 2. What did I do from here to here? What's different? Well, the minus 2n is still here as negative 2n. It looks like I got rid of the 10. How did we get rid of the 2n? Well, that's a positive 10. How do you get rid of a positive number? You subtract it. So it looks like I used the subtraction property of equality. All right, and now I go from negative 2n equals negative 4 to n equals 2. What did I do here? How did I go from negative 2n to n? What did I do? Well, it looks like I divided by negative 2 on both sides. What property lets you divide by negative 2 on both sides? The division property. And we're done. So what you're used to doing is just going straight to solving. And I'm forcing you to go in and name each step that you do. That's all. It's like whenever you learn to play chess, like everybody learns in elementary school. It's sort of a fun thing that teachers do. And then you start playing chess and you make these moves. Down the road, you learn that, oh, you just made a famous move by that famous chess player who always did it to take his opponent's queen. It actually has a name. You just don't realize it. And now that's what these do. Everything you do in an equation has a name. Now we're just telling you what the name is. All right, so look here. We have 20 equals negative 4x minus 6x. I need to see what's different from here to here. The 20 is still the same. The equals is still the same. But I turned negative 4x minus 6x into negative 10x. Well, you know what let me do that? I like to write the distributive property. but what we actually did was combine like terms, which, by the way, is the distributive property. Because, this is really -4 minus 6x. Okay, so just keep that in mind. All right. Now, how did we go from 20 equals -10x to -2 equals x? Well, what's different? How did 20 become -2? I could subtract. How did -10x become x? Always look for the variable. What's happening from here to here? We went from -10x to x. So here we were multiplying by -10x, and now x just stands alone. So it looks like we divided by -10. So I used the division property of equality. And now I went from -2 equals x to x equals -2. And this is the symmetric property of equality. Okay, again, the symmetric property, you've been doing that for years. It lets you turn around or reverse the parts around an equal sign. All right, so we have -7 minus, the negative of 7 minus 4x equals 9. So it looks like we have to clear the parentheses first using the distributive property. So, this is backwards. So they're telling me what to do. So this becomes -7 plus 4x equals 9. We're taking the opposite of everything in here. Now it says we're going to add to both sides. What are we going to add to both sides? I'm so glad you asked. Here's my variable. I need to get rid of -7. The way I get rid of -7 is to add it to both sides. And when I do that, I get 4x equals 16. And now what is the next step? The next step says we divide by 4, which they tell me I'm supposed to divide something on both sides. Well, we divide by 4, and we find that x equals 4. By the way, I hope that you are checking these as you go back in. You know what I mean? Make sure that you are plugging in the original. Let x equal 4. What's 4 times 4? 16. What's 7 minus 16? -9. What's the opposite of -9? 9. Check. It works. All right. Next equation. A plus 5 equals -5a plus 5. All right. So that information is given to us. Now it says use the addition property of equality. I'm going to tell you right now, when I have a variable on both sides, I always get rid of the smaller variable. By getting rid of the smaller variable, you avoid negative variables. I avoid negative variables like the plague because there are several chances for me to accidentally drop that negative or forget to bring it along, and I don't need that worry. So to get rid of -5a, we'll add it to both sides. So we get 6a plus 5 equals 5. Now what are we going to do? Well, I need a by itself. I need to get rid of the plus 5. So I subtract it. So I get 6a equals 0. And really, guys, so far I've added to both sides. Now I've subtracted. Now this says to divide. So I'm going to divide by 6 over here. 6a divided by 6 is a. 0 divided by 6 is 0. So I've done all the steps. And now they give us one where they mix the two. All right. 3x plus 12 equals 8x minus 18. All right, what's different here? Well, the 12 is still there. The minus 18 is still there. They got rid of the 3x. You know why? Because it's the smaller variable out of 3x and 8x. So they subtracted the 3x here. So they subtracted 3x there. They used the subtraction property of equality. Okay, my variable is x. I need to get rid of minus 18. The way I do that is I add 18 to both sides using the addition property. Now what did I do? My next step, I went from 5x to x. It looks like I divided both sides. Division. Property of equality. I divided both sides. And then remember, if you're like me, you like to turn this around. X equals 6. The symmetric property lets me turn it around. And the last one, wholly fraction. That's okay. Don't look at it as a fraction. Look at it as a division problem. But first, I don't want to mess with that right now. I want to get rid of the minus 4. What's the inverse of subtracting 4? Adding 4. So that's going to zero out. I'm left with x divided by 7 equals 14. Oh, I have to do everything here. I used the addition property of equality. All right, my last step. They divided x by 7, so I'm going to multiply times 7 on both sides. And check this out. If I take 7 times x divided by 7, y'all, we so just did this. The 7 divides out the 7. I'm left with x. So I get x equals, and then 14 times 7 is 98. And what property let me multiply on both sides? Multiplication property of equality. Okay, so let's sum this up. You've already been solving equations. We've been forcing you to solve equations for like ever. Now we're just asking you the names that justify solving the equations. So we're making you learn names, and those are the notes on how to identify the names, but also how they let you justify the math that you're doing. And that's it.